Hello everyone and welcome back to the Great Ace Attorney Adventures. Last time after doing a bit of deduction, banter back and forth with Herlock Sholmes here, we may have possibly figured out the truth that Kazuma was killed because, what's her face, why can't I remember her name right now? Yeah, Miss Pavlova, right? So she didn't have a snake aboard with her, she had a cat aboard with her, and it's possible that Kazuma was accidentally killed tripping over this cat. So, we're in conversation with her right now. Let's see if we can get a bit more details out of it. I don't suspect this is the whole truth, though. Tell us exactly what happened last night. It was a little after 1 in the morning. It was so late, but I hadn't had time to feed Darka, so I gave her some food. And then, all of a sudden, she scratched me and jumped out of my hands. People do say that cats become very anxious and nervous in new environments. She was so fast, she disappeared through the ventilator before I could stop her. And that is how you acquired the rather nasty wound on the back of your hand, I take it. Yes. And I've read the, rules on the wall. I knew that I was not allowed Darko with me. Yes, modern science suggests that animals can carry infectious diseases. It is a precaution, really. Oh, is that it? That's the reason for no pets. So, I listened and listened, trying to hear if there was some noise in the next cabin. It was very quiet. I was sure if someone was there, he must be sleeping. So at that point, you thought it was safe to try and lure the kitten back again? By dangling the end of the toy through the ventilator into the adjoining cabin? Daka always loves this toy, but it didn't work. Nothing worked. I tried using her favorite toy. I tried whistling to her softly, but nothing. She didn't return. So the faint whistling sound Kazuma wrote about in his diary was Miss Pavlova trying to retrieve her pets. Cats have a propensity to remain hidden in the shadows when frightened. Yes, there was nothing else I could do, so I just had to wait until she had calmed down. But then... Yeah! Oh, dang. Moida. Or, I don't know, or just an accident. I nearly passed out with shock. I heard her cry out and then... Oh, it was such a dreadful bang. Then afterwards, nothing. It was totally silent. Kazuma was... From the appearance of the brown mark on the floor, it seemed likely that what you heard was the victim stepping on the glass bell and tripping up. The SS Bureau is a large vessel, but even she can pitch and roll violently without warning. And Mr. Asaji was already off balance as a result of the ship lurching when the kitten got under his feet. A combination of unfortunate factors could easily have caused him to fall over. But what became of the kitten afterwards? She doesn't know, doesn't she? Does she? It's still missing. In the end, I managed to get her to come back through the vent. Oh, she did manage to get Darka back. Oh, that's right, because the case was moving. I'm an idiot. Yeah, Darka's nowhere to be seen. She probably let her out and then lost her again. I must have forgotten to lock my case. And now she's disappeared again. Gracious, that cat is I can't read that. Gracious, that cat is as insufferably restless as I am. Well, he knows something about himself, at least. When I woke this morning, I heard that young man in the cabin next to mine had died. But I couldn't bring myself to tell anyone what had happened. I was too scared. Scared that they would send me back. Oh, hold on a minute. What about the snake? You're right. Where is it? If the snake isn't your friend, Miss Pavlova, then whose is it, and where did it come from? What on earth is such a dangerous creature doing aboard this ship? Well, he's like smiling now. Is it his ship? Or his snake? Oh, I didn't say. Snake is my friend. His name is Pirozko. Pirozko? I'm gonna go with that. Pirozko. What? What? That snake belongs to you? He escaped from cage when an emergency alarm sounded. I was looking for him. Did not expect to find him in here. Yes, how did that snake get into this cabin? But animals are not permitted on board. Huh. We're at sea for 1 year. You want to be so long without close friend, without someone who understands? Couldn't you find someone a little more human who understands you better? But my dear burly fellow, a gargantuan venomous snake? Surely you can appreciate the danger you're putting everyone in. It's not venomous, yeah. No venom. Ryunosuke does not have venom. He is harmless, very long, but very gentle. He is adorable, like Granny. It's venomless. Yes. Now he is hungry, so he is in bad mood. But once I feed him, you will see big smile. And you feed him what? Milk, I suppose? No. Ha! Like they say they keep milk chickens. Ridiculous. Snakes that drink milk are only in stupid stories. Ryunosuke eats mouses. Big, fat, round mouses. Oh, so... Is that what the mouse trap in the passageway out there is for? Of course! How else could I catch my friend's favorite food? Nothing says top of the food chain like the look in their eyes right now. Dude, what happened to your eyes? Dang. It refuses to drink milk. It can't hear a whistle. It can't climb up a bell cord. And it's not even venomous. How the deuce did something so inept land a starring role? It's not my fault. I do not make up stories. My Pirozko has nothing to do with this incident. So that's what happened. That's the truth behind my best friend's tragic death. That's really true. That's kind of unfortunate. But what is the meaning behind the writing on the wall? Or, sorry, on the floor? And why was the door being locked? Or was the door just being locked relevant to, like, make it more likely that I was accused, you know? Something like that. And this is all just a big old misunderstanding. Miss Pavlova. I understand the difficult situation you found yourself in, and I do sympathize. But please remember this. A young man lost his life. If you're going to attempt to cover up your guilt with lies, then no matter what the circumstances, I cannot forgive you. But what are you talking about, Miss Mikotoba? What lies? Miss Pavlova just confessed everything. It was just a series of unfortunate events. An accident. Oh yeah, another thing I just remembered too is that everyone had a throbbing head too, so what was that about? I'm no great detective like Mr. Sholmes. I don't have a gift for knowing the truth. But even I could see that was not the truth. Don't you agree, Mr. Naruhodo? To be perfectly honest, yes. There's a discrepancy in Miss Pavlova's story, I'm sure of it. I can't quite put my finger on it. I confess. I was intending to let Scotland Yard deal with any outstanding issues on this matter. What does that mean? Oh? I am only present here for a very specific reason. The truth is, you, Mr. Naruhodo, are simply a distraction. A distraction? I do hope you're not finding your shackles too uncomfortable. Ah, not again. When did he do that? Why? Why? Why would you do that to me again? Especially as they're on your wrist as a result of my intervention. I was rather hoping I could resolve matters before we made our next port call. You were Mr. Sholmes? Or sorry, you were Mr. Sholmes? Yes, but I overlooked one important detail. The deceased young man was a very close companion of yours. Was he not? Yes. Cosmo was my closest friend. I owed him my freedom, even. In that case, we must follow this to its conclusion. No further distractions. You must uncover the real truth here, Mr. Naruhodo. Yes, whatever that may be. The key to this is the discrepancy in Ms. Pavlova's story, I'm sure. If I can chase that down, maybe the truth will become clear. The truth about how you really died. About how that scene in your cabin really came to be. Alright, I'll see what I can do. Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Naruhodo. So then, shall we begin? Yes. Well, what we should ponder first. Oh, I like that transition there between cabins. Is the victim who lost his life in a cabin that was bolted shut from the inside. Was this truly an unfortunate accident? I think what we should be looking into, right, is the fact that there's a message written on the floor, and he supposedly died from falling, but how would he have time to have written that? Or was it in fact no accident at all? That is what we must establish in the first instance. Well, we've already established it, haven't we? The man tripped over the kitten that had climbed into his cabin via the ventilator. Tragic, yes, but still an accident. Whose voice was that? Was that Ryunosuke's? Hold it? Wait, let's just take a step back. It doesn't make sense if that's really what happened, does it? I'm gonna have to ask you to spell it out for me, I'm afraid. Yes, it's starting to take shape now. There's a clear contradiction between the facts and Ms. Pavlova's story here. The evidence is right there in Cosmo's cabin. It's undeniable! His death couldn't possibly have been a mere accident. Oh, really? Let us show our hand, Mr. Naruhodo. Time to present the evidence. The evidence that proves unequivocally that the victim's death was no mere accident. I think it's going to be the writing on the floor here. The truth is clearly recorded in this photographic print. There's no way that Mr. Asoji could have left this message on the floor. That script, it's Russian, isn't it? Indeed it is. The word written means wardrobe. I see what you mean. Most people would leave a dying message in their native language. Japanese in this case. But maybe he was studying Russian. It is a simple language. He could have picked it up very fast. That doesn't seem likely. That's actually not the point. It makes no difference whether he knew Russian or not. Yeah, wouldn't you be able to tell us if you knew Russian, Ryunosuke? Surely you would know that. Sorry, what do you mean? Exactly what I said before. There's no way that Mr. Asoji could have left this message on the floor. And the reason why is clearly explained in here. Damage to the cervical vertebrae resulting in instant death. Instant death. Oh. See, this whole thing reminds me of how, like, this is a thing that comes up a lot in the Ace Attorney games, you know, like minor spoilers, where they'll say, like, the victim wrote something, but most of the time, right, it turns out to be fake. And I always love this meme that I see online, where an autopsy report gets updated from died instantly to died pretty much instantly. It's like the stupidest thing that, like, happens in the series, honestly. But just to explain that the victim maybe could have had a few seconds to write it, but whatever. I don't think that's what they're going for with this. Let's press on though. It was just something that reminded me of that. Which means, after the victim fell to the floor, he couldn't possibly have written anything. Because he was already dead! That's not the only reason either. There's something else we found in Mr. Osagi's cabin. A remnant of something that couldn't possibly have been there if what Miss Pavlova told us was true. What? So, Susato-san has noticed it too then? Putting this message on the floor aside, there's something else that gives the truth away. Another piece of evidence that proves this was no accident. In other words... I don't understand this one. It's definitely not this. It's not the photograph. I don't think the articles could be related. Well, there's not really much that could be, right? I'm gonna say it's probably the mark on the floor. This piece of broken glass next to the mark on the floor. Well, that's the glass bell the kitten had around its neck. We already know all about that. It was broken in half when the victim tripped over the cat and fell. So we already have a satisfactory explanation. Where's the flaw in that logic? Unfortunately, there's a very big flaw. A fatal flaw. What? That's really what happened. And how did one half of the bell end up back here in this cabin? Ah! Oh, I didn't even consider that. Yes, remember that we found the other half of the glass bell in that waste paper basket? Would you care to explain that, Miss Pavlova? Oh no. Both these pieces of evidence clearly point to the same conclusion. That when Mr. Osagi died last night in his cabin, there was someone else in this room. And that same person deliberately arranged a scene to disguise the truth, in order to cover up his or her own guilt. Ah! Yes, there was someone else present in Mr. Osagi's. Whose voice was that? Well, that has to be the Russian guy, right? You are wasting time. Someone else was there. Duh, of course, we know this. What are you talking about? He's gonna say I was there, obviously. Bulkhead was bolted shut from inside. There's no way in or out. Oh, yes. And only other person in the cabin when young student died was you. Yes. It's true. I was in the cabin when it happened. You were shut inside the cabin wardrobe to be precise about the details. But I don't know Russian. There's no way I would have left that message. Not would have. There's no way you could have left that message to be precise about the details. Would you mind? Ah ha ha ha! Forgive me, my dear fellow. As I was saying, are we gonna bring up the seal on the wardrobe again? The person in question wrote the word wardrobe in Russian on the floor. In an attempt to incriminate me for the crime, even though I had been asleep in there the entire time. And then, the same person picked up the broken glass bell that had fallen on the floor. Well, why didn't they pick up the whole piece then? For fear of it becoming evidence that would show how Mr. Osagi really died. But why wouldn't this person have taken all the pieces of the bell away? That's what I just said! Leaving half behind was always going to be raised questions. Well, yes, well, it was past 1 o'clock in the early hours of the morning. The cabin would have been quite dark. The single small lamp suspended from the ceiling would barely have cast any light onto the floor there. Little wonder, then, that the culprit failed to notice a fragment of the tiny item. You all suspect me, don't you? Oh, where'd the snake go? Seaman Stroganoff! Nina is woman of sea. She is daughter of strong sailor. 2 years ago, they noticed her dancing skills and she went away to join ballet company. But before, she was dancer on this ship, a member of ship's band. Oh, that's interesting. So she actually does have a history with these guys. That's cool. You do not accuse ship's angel for being criminal. Ah, so that's it. You say that when young student died, Nina was there in his cabin. But that is not possible. I give my tooth. Well, this is all most interesting. And why would you give your tooth, pray? How can you be so sure? You're a great detective. You should know. It's the door again, yeah. Look truth in eyes. Cabin bulkhead was bolted shut from inside. Nobody could go into cabin. Not Nina. Not anyone. Or you want to tell me that killer could walk through locked doors? Yet, it's impossible. He's right. But wait, I've read about this in detective stories. People often tie thread around door latches so they can open and close them from the outside. Thread? Are you stupid? These bulkheads are not barn doors. Certainly not. These are watertight doors, as one would expect to find on any modern steamship. Constructed of heavy steel, with not a gap in sight. No threads, or needles, or magnets could have been used. No, of course not. I thought so too. But Mr. Naruhodo suggested it earlier, so... Susato-san, how could you shift it onto me like that? So Seaman Stroganoff has a valid point. The cabin door couldn't have been bolted shut from the outside. Not necessarily. What? I put it to you that I could bolt this cabin door without laying a finger on it. And in this very cabin, we can see that traces of the method I have in mind have been used before. I don't believe it. Well, Mr. Naruhodo, I believe you know what I mean, don't you? A way to shut the bolt of the cabin door from the outside? One way does spring to mind, yes. Do you really know what Mr. Shulman means, Mr. Naruhodo? Yes, and so should you. Because we've seen it happen. Indeed we have. So would you care to do the honors, Mr. Naruhodo? Point out the telling signs of the method that was used to slide the cabin door bolts across from the outside. Is it gonna be like this over here? No. Wait, what? Hang on. Point out the telling signs. Like, there's nothing, like the crosshair isn't revealing anything here. That's interesting. I'm gonna guess it's either the horn or oh, it's probably the books. Yeah, it's probably the books. Let's do the books. Yes. Look at the bookcase there. See how all the books and things on it have toppled over? That must have happened when the ship made its emergency stop before. Yes, that's right. It's a very powerful vessel after all. When the engines are thrown into reverse, a violent jolt goes across the entire ship. Any small objects that aren't fastened down are bound to fall over. I believe, yes, it's what's known as the force of inertia acting on the objects. Is there something Susato-san doesn't know? Or that isn't in her book at least? Yeah, she's a physics major, didn't you know that? She's double majoring in physics and law. Oh, whatever. Alright, well, whatever it's called, the same force that pushed over the books on the bookcase also made something else in this cabin move. The bolt on the cabin door. Ah! It was very obvious just after the emergency stop that the ship made earlier. We had come into this cabin not long before, and we hadn't bolted the door. But then... Hello, is anyone in there? Shout if you need assistance. Oh, that sounds like... Inspector Hosonaga. Oh, yes. That's it. When the ship stopped suddenly, the bolt flew across and locked the door. Yes, it's made of metal, but it's small and light enough to be moved by the ship's sudden change of speed. With a force of ineptia, if you want to call that. Are you trying to say that last night, after Mr. Asoji was killed? Yeah, it just slammed itself shut. Or, well, I don't know, slammed is probably not the right word. Slid over. The SS Bureau made another emergency stop? When I woke up this morning and looked around the cabin, I thought it looked a little odd. All the books on the shelves had toppled over, and all the ornaments. It was almost as if someone had run their hands across the shelves and deliberately knocked everything over. Oh yes, I remember that. And I stood them all up again, didn't I? Then when we came into this cabin, we were surprised to see the same thing in here. All the books and everything had toppled over, just like in Mr. Asoji's cabin. Oh my! Do you have anything to say about this, Miss Pavlova? Are you out of your mind? You say Bira made emergency stop? It does seem a little far-fetched. How could that possibly have happened? I'm sorry, what? How many people are on this ship? Like, surely, like, someone was awake during that time. Like, there were crewmates aboard the ship that could say that. Like, someone had to turn the ship, didn't they? Someone had to reverse the engine. Unless you're saying that the culprit is actually someone from the engine room. Oh, it is simple enough. Are you forgetting the button in the passageway outside? Used to trigger the emergency alarm? Oh yes, of course. There was a notice, wasn't there, telling you only to press the button in times of emergency. On dark nights when the fog is dense, the captain cannot afford to rely on the eyes of his lookout alone. Hence the placement of a number of buttons around the vessel to allow any crewman to raise the alarm. The sort of button one is almost compelled to press to satisfy one's curiosity. Wait! It was you? When the button is pressed, two things happen in the interest of safety. The emergency alarm bell rings, and the vessel comes to a complete stop. Wait, did Sholmes actually push it? As indeed it did a little earlier today. Mr. Sholmes, surely it wasn't you who... As I always say, a button has but one purpose in life. To be pressed, whatever the occasion. Sounds almost proud of himself. How dare you mess with the ship? I report you to Captain. You are in much trouble now. Now, I'm sure all that can wait until later. Let us not overlook the fact that we have learnt a valuable lesson. When the vessel makes an emergency stop, the bolts on the cabin doors slide closed. So, what we must now consider... Yes, it all comes down to one thing now. Last night, after what happened to Mr. Asoji, did this ship make an emergency stop, or did it not? You are idiots! Bureau has a huge ship with many passengers. If we make emergency stop, even in the middle of night, there will be chaos everywhere. That's what I was just saying. What are your thoughts, Mr. Naruhodo? Well, it's certainly possible that some kind of emergency happened last night. We have evidence to support that idea. Really? What evidence, Mr. Naruhodo? Does that have something to do with all of our heads? Fascinating. Do show us, my good man. What evidence promotes the theory that some emergency gripped this vessel late last night? I don't know. Maybe it's the log. Maybe this is maybe the Seaman, Stroganov is the murderer. And he's just hiding the fact that there was an emergency, and that's why there's nothing in the log. Let's present that. Seaman Stroganoff. It's your duty to patrol the first-class area of the ship, isn't that right? Duh, that is correct. Why? In the ship's log here, this will be where you record the details of your duties? What are you doing with that? That is mine! Ah, you rather carelessly left it atop the little makeshift bureau in the passageway out there. But, as responsible passengers, we took it into our care with the mind to return it to you later. I left it there on purpose! That is where I put it always! The point is, looking at what you usually record, it's clear that under normal circumstances, you write the phrase, "nothing to report," every 30 minutes. But from 2 o'clock last night until first light this morning, nothing was recorded at all. Nothing recorded in the log? That is... duh! Because nothing happened! But if nothing happened, you would normally write "nothing to report," wouldn't you? Ugh. Indeed so, which tells us that shortly after 2 a.m., something happened here aboard the SS Bira. Something sufficiently significant to make you forget to fill in the ship's log, in fact. Are you suggesting that the ship really did make an emergency stop in the middle of that night? Stop talking rubbish! If I'm perfectly honest, I find that a little hard to believe myself. Oh? Why? Well, because if something as major as an emergency stop really had happened, surely all of us would have noticed. That's very true. Thanks to the emergency stop we experienced earlier, we all know what it feels like now. The ship lurched so violently, and the alarm bell was so loud. I can't imagine that anybody would sleep through that, even if it happened in the dead of night. Well, no, that's a good point. What of the throbbing? Sorry? What do you mean? Your head, man. The throbbing of your head since this morning. We have all suffered with it. Ah! Oh, yes. I've had a headache, you're right. In fact, I haven't been feeling myself since I woke up today. Nor have I. My head has been feeling heavy ever since dawn. Yes, you've all been afflicted, haven't you? Just as I suspected. He's right, my head's been throbbing today too. And since eating dinner yesterday evening, everything has felt sort of hazy. Were we all drugged? Were we all drugged by someone who prepared the food? I can't really remember anything that happened after I climbed back inside the wardrobe. Oh! And Cosmo didn't eat anything, that's right! So he was like awake while everyone else was like drugged asleep. That's what happened. I get it now. That's also why Ryunosuke earlier said he doesn't remember anything after dinner, like when he was being interrogated. That makes sense. And the first thing I noticed this morning was the throbbing pain in my head. I had already been dragged out of the wardrobe and had those handcuffs put on me by that point. Why didn't I wake up when all this was happening to me? Tell me, Mr. Naruhodo, you boarded this vessel as a stowaway, didn't you? Oh, well, yes. Sorry. The stowaway class of accommodation doesn't usually include meals. What did you survive on? Well, Cosmo looked after me. He was always happy to share his meals. So you enjoyed some of the whole roast chicken dish that was served yesterday evening, I take it? Yes, in fact. I had all of that. Cosmo wasn't fond of chicken. Oh, really? So the victim didn't eat any of the chicken at all? That's right. He didn't touch it. Is that relevant? My dear fellow, does that not strike you? Oh, Mr. Sholmes, do you mean to say that there was something wrong with the chicken? I do. No, really? Is that really true? The meal prepared for the passengers last night had been tampered with. Tampered with by the addition of a soporific... I feel like I've seen that or heard that word spoken, but I don't know how to pronounce that word written out. Soporific. Designed to induce a very deep slumber in those who consumed it. A sleeping drug? Do you mean whoever did this laced every meal with a sleeping drug so no one would notice the ship's emergency stop? Mr. Naruhodo! Of course that's not what Mr. Sholmes means. What a far-fetched idea. Precisely. Lacing every meal of every passenger on board with a drug would certainly be impossible. Unless, that is, every single member of the crew was a conspirator. What? Mr. Sholmes? Well, Seaman? Eh? I'm sorry to say that any more deception in this matter will get you nowhere. If you refuse to talk, there would have to be an inquiry made through the shipping company, of course. And were that to happen, every member of the crew, and the captain himself, will be hauled over the coals. For aiding and abetting a renegade. Was this all to, like, hide her presence on the ship, maybe? Or maybe it was only people in first class who were drugged. So that they wouldn't notice her getting on. Please, no more. I will tell everything. I love that turnaround animation there. I cannot make problems like this for everyone anymore. These crewmen are your former comrades, I believe. Yes. So when I decided to run away, I asked them to help me. We all agreed to help. Everyone together. She threw away everything. Her fame in the ballet. Mother Russia. We wanted to help our angel. I don't believe it. You are right. We put sleeping drug in chicken last night. Yes, I remember now. I did notice chewing on a lump of something strange and bitter at one point. Duh, we could not make all drug. How do you say, dissolve? Talk about heavy seasoning. At midnight, in waters near Shanghai, we brought our angel on board. In waters near Shanghai? I thought she got on some port, but whatever. How did she get here? She was helped by comrade on shore with small fishing boats. Oh, I see. While all the passengers on the SS Bureau slept soundly. Thanks to the almost magical effects of the slumber-inducing potion their evening meals had contained. This episode's going on a little long, guys, but I feel like we're very close to the end here. I think I'm just gonna keep going, and if it ends up being, like, really, really long, I might just cut it into 2 episodes. We'll see. So, if that's what happened, the only people awake on the ship last night were the crew, people who dislike chicken, and the newly boarded passenger, Miss Pavlova. And that means it would have been possible for you. You could have used the emergency stop trick to lock Cosmo's cabin door. How would anyone have known that? Like, how do you figure something like that out? But how does that make sense? Surely every cabin door would have ended up locked in that case, and there would have been a complete chaos. Oh, I wouldn't say so. What? Of course. Just like us, all the other passengers would have eaten their evening meal of chicken in their cabins. After which they would have been overwhelmed by tiredness because of the sleeping drug. Quite. And accordingly, all passengers were already in their cabins for the night. Yes. The overwhelming majority of passengers would habitually sleep with their cabin doors bolted anyway. And so, not one of them would have found it remarkable to find the door locked in the morning. In summary, in order to fasten the bolt of a single cabin door on the ship, The culprit brought the entire vessel to an emergency stop in the early hours of the morning. You have talked a long time and said many things. What is point? The point is what I said earlier. There was somebody else present on the scene when the victim lost his life that night. Someone who left a message in Russian on the floor in an attempt to incriminate another. Someone who tried desperately to hide the broken fragments of glass that would reveal the culprit's identity. And someone who abused the ship's emergency stop procedure in order to lock a door. All told, a busy night. But... I don't know any about this. I'm just a little girl. You like to speak with your long English words and explain your clever ideas. But I am sailor, and sailors don't listen to long, boring stories. We don't believe. Sailors like me, we trust only what we see with our eyes. A laudable trait. What? I'm quite of the same disposition, my good man. Observation to me is everything. Mr. Naruhodo. Oh, yes? Do you hear it? That accusatory cry of guilt on the wind? What accusatory cry of guilt? Sorry, you've lost me. Proof of involvement, man, but you can't hear such a call with your ears. No, you must hear it with your eyes, for observation is the basis of all deduction. What are you talking about? I believe the time has come. For one final logic and reasoning spectacular to expose the truth. Okay, so there is a bit more time to this. Good to see. So, Mr. Naruhodo, your assistance, if you please. With what exactly, Mr. Sholmes? With observation, my dear fellow, just as I said, of these two prevaricators. Observation? If you remember, Mr. Naruhodo, we know that somebody tried to fabricate evidence, don't we? By tampering with the scene of Mr. Asaji's death. But what we're looking for is some trace of evidence that one of these two was there when it happened. Precisely. You are delightfully quick to grasp my meaning. Alright, I'll see what I can see. So we're looking for a trace of evidence that shows someone else was there last night when Cosmo died. Alright, guys. I feel like we gotta be very close. I've said that for like the past 3 episodes now, but... I think I'm gonna leave it here. The next episode might be a little short as a result, but I feel like if I keep going, the episode's gonna be... like, the current episode's gonna be absurdly long. So I hope you guys understand. So next time, hopefully, will be the end of the case. And we'll finally have the true... like, the whole truth will come out, you know? So I hope you guys have a good day, and I hope you enjoyed the episode. And I'll talk to you all later. Bye!